this is testing number 1, just trying to see if you can hear me, if you can see me, if I've got my phone on the right way. Maybe not. Let's start again. Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Mind and Muse podcast. I am your host, Caroline, and I am recording here in my hometown on the island of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, where I live with my husband and my dog Snoopy, and until recently with my daughter Clarisabeth, who is the host of the Crochet Cakes podcast. If you are a returning viewer, thank you. I can finally say that, returning viewer, because it's episode 2. I thank you for coming back to join me again and see if now things go a little bit better for us. And if you are a new viewer, well, thank you very much. I know there is a choice that you have to make of what podcasts to watch and which ones to stick with. So I hope you like what you see and that you decide to continue to share with us. Oh, let's say once every 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not on a steady fixed schedule yet, but hopefully we're trying to get a podcast up there every couple of weeks, depending on, well, how much I have created that I would like to share. Basically, this is a podcast where I share the crafty side of my life, which means that I do some crochet, I show some knitting, I may do some felting, I every once in a while sew, and so try and share bits and pieces of that's with you, partially to help you discover maybe what's out there for you, hopefully once in a while to show you some new ideas, and basically just to share the happiness that crafting gives me. So welcome, and let's get on with it. Let's talk about finished objects, because if you have a keen eye and if you have been with us before, you will notice that I am wearing today my Genevieve sweater. It's a finished object. The last week that I podcasted, I believe it was almost complete, but I put up a video on my channel recently, previously this week, where I shared a little bit about what Genevieve looked like in its final stage. And it was a short video of me posing with Genevieve on and trying to zoom in on different parts of the sweater. So, what's different? Well, I have weave demands, and I also have eliminated some of the sleeve length because it was too long. You can notice in the video that I put up that it was folded because I had added a couple of extra rows and then found that, oh, it was bothering me, and so I didn't want to leave it that way. Although, thinking about the climate in the UK and Scotland in the last couple of weeks, maybe I should have left it, but, well, it's gone. And so this is it. I'm going to stand up for a second so that maybe you can get a better look at it. Remember, it is a sweater divided into 6 panels. And in these panels, there is a lace feature. Okay. The panels go all the way around the back to the front. The panels are created by V stitches, and then there was a lace stitch added to the collar at the top, to the neckline, and to the edgings on the sleeves. Now, I created my lace pattern in a different yarn to the one that I used. This original one is Patons. It is just Patons wool. It's a DK wool blend in the color medium gray heather. And the secondary yarn that I used here is from Crafternoontreats, and it's her Dove colorway. I had thought about adding it to the edge at the bottom, adding a little bit of length to the sweater, because truth be told, I didn't have enough yarn. I knew I wasn't going to have enough from the very beginning, but I thought that maybe because I had to make these panels slightly smaller than the pattern provides, that I would have a little extra bit, but I really didn't have enough to make it as long as the pattern is shown. If you remember, this pattern is from the book by Dora Ohrenstein. It is from the Topdown Crochet Sweater book that she published, and this is called Genevieve. And I almost made it identically, except for the fact that I had to reduce these panels because I was getting too much bulge at the back. So essentially, I think I crocheted this up about 3 times before I actually got it to a point where I said, okay, I like it this way. And I didn't think I was going to like too much the lace on the collar, but it didn't come up as tight on me as it comes out in the photo that's in the book, so it's not uncomfortable at all, and I'm very sure that I could wear this in cold weather and I would feel very comfortable. So that's Genevieve. I don't know, in the long run I'll probably change her name when I finally get the project up on Ravelry, but it is for now my Genevieve sweater, and it is going to accompany me to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival next week, guys. It's already next week. Can you believe it? I can't. And there's so much to do, and I'm going crazy because there's so much to do. But, well, we'll get on with that in a moment. That is my first finished object. My second finished object, I'll share with you, are also the socks. My personal design, maybe I could call that, of crochet socks that I made when the day my daughter moved out. I began them just to commemorate the occasion, and it's not that I need the socks to remember her, but I just wanted something to commemorate the occasion. And so I created the sock. You'll remember that it is made up in moss stitch, which is simply interchanging rows of slip stitch and half double crochet, and then on the next row half double crochet and slip stitch all the way across, so that you never have the same stitch on top of each other, but it creates a nice diagonal design. Then at the top I incorporated a crochet cupcake stitch. The sock design, the architecture of the sock, I made it based on a blog post at crochetkitchen.com, where the author gives suggestions on how to make a crochet sock for a baby, but said that it could probably also be adapted to an adult sock and without changing any of the measurements. So I based the sock on the measurements the author gives in the blog post, and the change that I made was the stitch I was using for the foot and the leg. At the end of the leg I incorporated I think this is a 2x2 knitted cuff, just because I remember Clarisabeth best by her knitted socks. So this is a joint project between me and this now podcast Mind and Muse and the Crochet Cakes podcast. We are going to work together. I have sent her my notes on what will become at some point the pattern, so that she can reproduce her own sock, and we will share ideas and suggestions on what can be improved to make it clearer for somebody trying it the first time. And once I have checked with the designers whose stitches I am incorporating here, the crochet cupcake, the cupcake stitch, I found on willmade.com. It was another author who designed a crochet cupcake blanket, and I took her instructions for the crochet cupcake pattern rows, the pattern rows, and I incorporated and I adjusted them to make them in the round for the sock. So even though I did do adjustments, she is the author of that pattern, and therefore I want to check back with those authors and make sure how I can incorporate those stitches into my final design without offending or violating anybody's copyright having any copyright infringement there. It's going to take us a while, but in the long run, we were actually planning this for a possible sock-along that might occur at the end of August, beginning of September, where we would share with anybody who wanted to join this pattern for free. We were not planning on selling it anyway, and form a group of people creating the sock to commemorate the end of crochet cakes as we knew it for a time, because for over a period of maybe 6 or 7 months, we were a pair. My daughter and I shared the screen, and now we have gone, so to say, separate ways, more so because of the difficulties on the island with communications, but we are going to try and get back together every so often to do a joint podcast of our makes. So I am trying to keep myself busy with crafting and always have something to do. So in any moment that we can come together again, I'll have things to share. Thirdly, on my list of finished objects, I was on a cupcake binge without actually eating them. But most of the makes that I have for you to share with you on this episode have to do in some way with cupcakes. So my next make that I'm going to share with you is a cupcake also, but it was a cupcake that was created through felting. Okay. It's also a gift for guess who, whose birthday is upcoming Monday. It's the day before we meet for EYF, so when I meet her on Tuesday, she requested that I make her a pin cushion. And so she had already seen this pattern before she left. It is a pin cushion that was included in a book that I received from my husband for Christmas. I have a very enabling family, so whenever I get into something new, I create a wish list of things that I would like to try out. They are very helpful in getting those things for me, and so he purchased for me this Christmas this book of needle felting, and the book includes beginner designs up to more complicated ones. They believe, or they have classified the cupcake as a beginner design. And then the book goes on to give you details on how to create things like ornaments and some animals too. I mean, just look at that rabbit. Isn't that a beautiful rabbit? I hope, I don't know, but I hope to at some point have the skills necessary to create these little creatures. They're very cute, and maybe even incorporate some of that into some more jewelry designs. As you guys know, that another one of my passions, or my, well, I don't know if it's a passion anymore. I'm a little bit too old to talk about passion if you ask me, but it is a hobby that I like to practice very frequently, to create jewelry. Speaking of another finished object is the necklace that I am wearing. I am going to remove it for a second so that you can see it. It is also, it's not based on a cupcake, but it is based on crochet. As you know, we will be traveling to Edinburgh, to EYF, and so we were hoping to have something that we might be able to share with anybody over there who's likes jewelry as much as we like. If you'll observe, this is a tiny yarn ball. The tiny yarn ball has been felted to create a sturdy material so that it's not all soft, and that when I inserted the tiny crochet hook, it would actually stay there. Then I simply incorporated a I simply incorporated the loop, the metal loop, so that I could insert the chain. And so I think that will be a nice memorabilia for anybody, any of our friends traveling to EYF with us. The yarn in this sample is the yarn that was left over from Clarisabeth's good old vintage cardigan, which she suffered so much for. This was Streetwise by Crafternoontreats. But yeah, we're thinking about obviously creating it in other colors too that might be appealing for somebody to use. That's a tiny finished object. I think what's most took me some thinking was the fact of the tiny crochet hook, because I didn't want to buy charms that exist already, and you can buy them because they were very expensive, and so I tried just the more economical version of taking an actual boy's crochet hook and cutting off the hook along with a little bit of the neck part of the, or the handle part of the hook, and filing off the edges so that it wouldn't be sharp, and then incorporating it into the yarn ball. That's another finished object, and I'm kind of like all over the place, crochet and felting and jewelry making. And a next finished object that I was actually going to share with you last week, but my cell phone, when I passed the recording from the cell phone to the computer, something went bonkers, and the computer decided that it wasn't going to play the piece of the video where I had talked about the washcloth along, if you want to call it so, that I was participating in. So I had to cut it out. Hopefully this week it won't happen. But anyway, I think last week I might have had one of them finished, but this week I have finished both of the ones that I was working on. There are two washcloths here. Let me just make sure I'm showing them on the front sides. Okay. These are my two washcloths. And the way I envisioned this washcloth experiment was that I would use the act of creating washcloths, whether in knit or in crochet, as a way to learn new stitches in both of those crafts. But I was going to try and find the same stitch in both crafts and be able to create simultaneously the two washcloths in the same stitch but in different crafts. So this is the waffle stitch in crochet. Remember, I don't remember if I have talked to you about this before, but if I haven't, some of these designs, not the actual washcloth design, but the stitch design, are coming from issues of Simply Crochet, because in several of their issues they have been incorporating new stitches, and they'll give you a new stitch, they'll explain the rows necessary to repeat to create the pattern, and then after that they'll give you a series of projects that you can actually create to incorporate the stitch. And so this is in issue 61 of Simply Crochet, and after they describe to you the rows needed to create the stitch, it's back post, front post, back post, they show you a series of projects that you could create. One of them is a wastebasket that they have surrounded or covered with what would you call it, with a casing. They're covered with a casing that was created with the waffle stitch. So it's very nice, and I'm really interested in practicing that one and creating it. The thing was that they created it for an oval waste paper basket, and most of the ones that I have around, so I can see what I do there. Like I said, this one is the waffle stitch also, but it's knit waffle stitch. This is a free pattern that I found on Ravelry. I simply searched for waffle stitch washcloth, and the first free pattern that I came up with, I chose. It was a pattern called Boxy Dishcloth, actually, from Leah Michelle Designs, and it's free. It was rather ingenious, though, well, ingenious to me because I'd never done this. The fact that what did she cast on? I think it was a cast on of about 46 stitches, and then at the beginning and the end of each row, she does a slip stitch where she slips off the knitwise, the first stitch at the beginning and at the end, and that creates this boxiness on the sides. Oh, over here. This boxiness on the sides, so that it's straight, so that you don't get wiggly waggly end there, and then I didn't have to add an edging to it, which was great. I began already my second set. Like I said, these will be dishcloths that I'm going to accumulate and then gift them at different times when I need a gift for somebody. I think a washcloth with maybe a bottle of some body wash with a nice fragrance is always a well received gift. It's always useful, at least. So I began a second one with a diamond stitch. I found a knit washcloth with the diamond stitch. It was inside this book. I just purchased it at Walmart. It's 3-way knit dishcloths, and I just want to make every single one of them because I find them all. I think I'm just going to walk through it and kind of like make them all so that's the waffle stitch again, by the way, that I didn't realize it. And here's a diamond panels. I believe that's the one that I want to make. Diamond panels. And so if I find something like that in crochet, I'm going to try and find one. I do believe that Simply Crochet has a stitch they call the raised diamond stitch in one of their issues. Let me check. In issue 54. And so I think I'm going to try and compare those two and see if they look in any way similar so that I could say that I'm practicing the same stitch in both crafts. So that's my dishcloth. I mean, I'm not calling it dishcloth. I'm calling it washcloth because if you asked me anything you can use for a dishcloth, you might as well be able to use it as a washcloth. I don't know. I'm just saying that. Mine are called washcloths, but a lot of the patterns are dishcloths. So, I don't know. I'm just making them a little bigger, a little longer, a little wider, and calling them a washcloth. But the idea is that Amber of the Yarn Hoarder podcast and Melissa of the Melissa Dawn Wool Artist podcast are both, well, Amber already began a Instagram cal for the idea was to make one washcloth a week for the whole year, and at the end of the year at Christmas have dishcloths to give away. Melissa mentioned in her last podcast that she had the idea of doing something similar, of creating her own wash along where we all created washcloths in a new stitch. She has a podcast. It's Melissa Dawn Wool Artist on YouTube also, and on that channel she does provide tutorials of different stitches that she is using in her washcloths. So I know that she mentioned the idea of a cal, but I'm not sure if she said it had already begun, if it was going to be Instagram, or if she was going to do it in her Ravelry group. But go check it out. She is Melissa Dawn Wool Artist on Instagram, and Melissa Dawn Wool Artist is the name of her channel, her YouTube channel. I believe that on Ravelry she is One Yarn of a Tale. One Yarn of a Tale. I believe that's the way it is, but you can check it out and see if you want to participate in any of that. Let's see. Continuing then on the cupcake theme, I have another finished object, which was a piece of wall art that I created making a granny square cupcake. If you follow me on Instagram, you had seen one of them. Right? This was the one that I presented on Instagram this week. I believe it was on Monday. And today is Thursday. So it didn't take me long to finish them. I think it took a couple of hours to make each cupcake. This is a pattern from the Granny Square. Is a pattern from Audrey of, is it Audrey? No, Ashley. It's Ashley of Sewrella, Sewrella.com, where she has a series of different types of granny squares where she incorporates figures like this. It could be an ice cream cone, a cupcake, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and they all are incorporated into the granny square. It's a pretty, she includes a video to help you do it also. So what you see her do is a pretty pattern, but my belief of the matter is that there's a lot of playfulness It's not an exact pattern. She says things like, for example, insert your hook at the top of the cupcake at 45 degrees angles from the center of your cupcake, of the frosting design of your cupcake. And it's not really specific. I mean, it really doesn't give you the exact point at the top. And I can understand why, because if you notice a cupcake, right, let's suppose this one that I was using over here, the cupcake is thinner at the bottom and wider at the top. It's thinner at the bottom and wider at the top. So it is a little difficult to encrust it in a square. You have to, the square, if you take the two corners of the bottom and the two corners of the top, it won't be a square. It'll open up like a trapezoid. And so you have to fool around with the measurements in order to get it to look like a square. But I believe it's promising. I think if you practice it enough, you can get good at it, and it could be something nice to make, let's say, into a pot holder or into a mug rug or into any type wool art, not wool art, sorry, wall art like what I have just created also. A blanket, I can see a blanket coming out of that. So I think it has a lot of uses, and so it's promising. But you do have to play with it, you do have to practice, and you do have to tear it back a couple of times because it doesn't always come out right the first time around. So that was another cupcake adventure for me this week. Let's see, what do I have? I've done all of my finished objects, but now I want to share with you one work in project, which is the only work in project that I have for this week, because I've been so occupied trying to plan things for EYF, trying to decide what to take, what not to take, getting ahead in my classes so I can miss a couple of days and not fall behind. And so it's been a busy week. I've been working solely and monogamously on one project that is in my white cat bag. And remember the project, I mentioned it last week that I had selected the yarns I was going to use, but I had not hooked it. I had not begun to crochet it. This is the, let me just get the pattern for you. This is the Blurred Lines sweater by Addie Day Designs. It is a purchased pattern, and it's been out, I think, maybe for a couple of weeks. I showed you last week the yarns that I chose, and here's what I have done up to now. Okay, I have completed the yoke, neckband, yoke. I have closed for the sleeves, divided for the sleeves, and I now have my 3.5 inches of body that are necessary to begin the shaping. There's a little bit of shaping going on after the 3.5 inches, where you bring your stitches in a little bit and then you bring them out again, and ending your design in another, I believe it's another ribbed part of the design at the end. So I have incorporated color 1 at the top, which is Misty Cloud from Crafternoontreats, and it has a percentage of merino and silk. And then the purple one is a colorway by Goosey Fibers. Is it Goosey Fibers? Or is it... I'll check. No. The purple one here is a colorway by Forbidden Woolery. Forbidden Woolery, it's her colorway called Heather in her Wrath base. And it is a combination of superwash, Blueface, Leicester, and bamboo. So, given that both of my yarns have a certain percentage that is not wool, it has a nice feel to it. It's nice and soft, and it's not itchy when you put it on, and it's also cool. It's not as warm, or at least not as hot. I mean, I believe that I could wear something like this in Puerto Rico and not overheat myself. Now, I don't think I'm going to have this finished for EYF because I am missing, I think, about maybe 7 inches down here or so, and then I am also missing the sleeves, and the sleeves are long sleeves where they have a thumb hole at the end, where you could, you know, stretch the sweater to warm up your hands. So I don't think I'll be able to do that before we leave on Tuesday. Most likely I will be taking it with me to work on it over there. However, I was thinking that maybe I won't do the long sleeves, and maybe I will leave it at 3/4 of the sleeve, because the long sleeve, I actually don't think I will get a lot of use out of them. But I think if this had 3/4 sleeves, I might even be able to use it here on occasions, right, on the cooler of the days, maybe not in midsummer, but I think I'd be able to get more use out of it. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. I like to do designs the way they were planned initially when I can, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one, but I like the way it's coming out. It works up easily in the sense that the stitches are easy, but it can become monotonous because right now you're on the body, and like they say in Body Island, it's just the same stitch after the same stitch after the same stitch, and there's no change. There's no change for a lot of inches. So in that sense, it's not easy to do a long stretch of it at one time, because it's not entertaining in that sense. However, I will say that because I did pick those soft yarns, and I'm loving the way that they are incorporating into each other, I'm really dying to get to the end part where you reincorporate your first colorway and to see the change. I really enjoy those slight lines of change. So yes, if you haven't got the pattern, if you're thinking about making it, my vote would be yes. Make it, find your yarns and make it. It is not difficult. Just don't hurry yourself. I mean, don't be like me that you started one week and wanted it for the week after, because that's not necessarily going to happen. But it is a great make, and it's by a great designer. So if you have a chance, take a look at it and find some nice yarn to make it in. Okay, that's my only finished object. And so I did want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of purchases that I made. The first one were 2 items that I purchased from Ninja Chicken. She's ninjachicken.org is her website, but her Etsy store is called Ninja Chicken. And she has a podcast also that's called Ninja Chicken. She lives in North Carolina in the United States, and she has a farm, and she's very into natural activities, natural dyeing, natural eating, etc. And so the first item I purchased was a long-awaited sock blank. It is an eco-printed, botanically printed sock blank, because the sock blank is soaked, because it does have a change in color, so it was soaked first, and then after it is soaked, the sock blank is rolled by setting leaves from different plants or trees on top of it, and then rolling it and letting it dry, and those leaves make an imprint on the wool. So this one was colored with madder, and it was printed with birch and fig. And yes, I can recognize the fig leaves because I do have a fig tree planted in my backyard, and so yes, those are fig leaves. It's very pretty, and I think it will make me very happy on the day that I decide to make these socks, or whatever I make out of this, because it is just a nice, happy thought to think that all of these colors come in nature, right? That there was no fudging with chemicals to create them. This is 80% superwash wool, 20% nylon, 420 yards, 115 grams. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get these sock blanks at her updates, because they are gone, I mean, like in the first 5 minutes. As occurs with many of the other famous yarn dyers, it is very frequent that some of them just, their sites are attacked by people that have been waiting there 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the update to begin. It has happened to me, for example, with Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. I've never been able to purchase from Wool and Vine, but because I've never gotten in there on time. And so I had tried before to get a sock blank, an eco-printed sock blank from Maria's site, but I wasn't able. This time, actually, I forgot. I forgot because of the change in time. And when I remembered, I think it was an hour over. And luckily, when I went back, there was still some, I think there were a couple of sock blanks left. In addition to the sock blank, I also purchased this scarf. It is a crepe silk scarf, 100% silk, 56 inches by 10 inches, and it was also dyed using madder. And in addition to madder, it is eco-printed with hydrangea, hibiscus, passion flower, and butterfly pea flower. So many flowers were used to create the different changes in color on this, the imprinting, and I think it's just gorgeous. I think it would make a terrific gift if you have somebody that you need to make a special gift to, because you have to be serious. This is not something that they're going to go and buy in a store. It's not something they can find there. So if it's a person who is into this type of thing, is using scarves as an accessory, I think it's just a beautiful piece to have. And so, and though I am not one of those people that frequently uses a scarf, I thought it was a pretty accessory to acquire and save for a gift for somebody special, because this has to be for somebody special. So yes, that's from Ninja Chickens. It's her silk scarves and her sock blanks. In addition to that, I also made a purchase from a person who, a fellow podcaster who already I consider my friend, maybe a virtual friend because I haven't met her in person, but we have interchanged comments and messages on Instagram and on email, and we have talked a bit about our personal lives and our personal situations. We have helped each other along by giving each other advice and giving each other words of wisdom, maybe. Just cheering the other person on and letting them know that they can do whatever they propose to do. One of the things that Melissa had wanted to do for some time was to put up a shop. Melissa is the same Melissa of the Melissa Dawn Wool Artist podcast, and melissadonwoolartist.com is her website. She is a wool designer, a wool artist. She does a couple of things. One of the things she does is to dye wool. And I need to get this for a second. And I also need to make some noise for a second. But I went, she just opened, inaugurated her shop recently. And so I went and I purchased a couple of skeins of yarn that she has hand dyed. This one is Merino and Donegal 8515. It's called Blue Sea Glass, 100 grams, 436. 100 grams, 436 yards. I don't know if you can see all the colors with this. I've got terrible lighting in here today, but I just loved it. It's, I feel I'm going to make one of my crochet cupcake socks. I need to test it a couple of more times before I can actually believe that my pattern is working. And so I think this is a candidate. This is a candidate for repeating that pattern. The second hank that I purchased from her was this one. It's called Middle Earth, and I've told you how I am a sucker for names. Middle Earth for me is a reference to Lord of the Rings, and I am a Lord of the Rings fan. This is 80/20 superwash merino and nylon, 400 yards, 100 grams fingering weight. And so I think it's just beautiful. You see all the colors that have been incorporated. She was nice enough to include, right, and that's why I say I consider her my friend also, because she added an extra skein of this beautiful It's Antique Rose. The same mix, 80-20, the same yardage, but look how pretty it looks alongside of this. They've got some of the same colors in them. So I'm thinking about, maybe I should go back and get another one of this Middle Earth, because this would make a fine fade garment, because one color is definitely present in the other, and I think they look fine together. So she is Melissa Dawn, wool artist. She dyes yarn, and she also felts to create wool paintings. And the painting you see back here is a painting that I purchased from her when I went to her shop recently. I'll just get it, bring it a little closer. I feel like I need to be so delicate with it. This is Winter's Edge. And when I went to the shop, it was one of the last paintings that she had left. And I just found it beautiful. My husband and I are somewhat collectors of art in our home, but my husband specifically likes to collect art created from different media. And so this was perfect. He found this amazing. He loved it. I haven't found a spot for it yet because I'm still considering if I should frame it. She felts all the way up the sides so that if you don't want to, you don't need to frame it. But I don't know if I want to protect it a little bit more. And also to make it fit in with the other things that we already have hanging. I think I might. But I find it beautiful, first of all. And second of all, I keep it close for the time being while I make the decision of framing it or not. I have it close to me in the crafting corner of my room because I sit while I'm crafting and I just admire it. And it's there as a sort of motivation of where I can be, what things I can do in some time from now if I really dedicate myself. It is like the motivation to believe that I can do things that I want to do and to have faith in myself and in the possibilities of that I can create. And so I keep it close for the time being for that reason, because it's really a motivational factor for me. I love her designs. I love the way she creates or recreates scenes that she sees on the canvas with the wool. And I just think she is a wonderful wool artist, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy to have a piece of her art in my home. So go show her some love. Go visit her shop, follow her podcast. We spoke recently, and I asked her, Melissa, do you think it would be possible that you did a felt along where you took something simple and we could all felt together piece by piece until the whole project was done, maybe over a series of months, I don't know. But if you like that idea, if you are new to felting as I am, or if you've never tried it out, or maybe you've tried it a little but got scared away because you couldn't find help where you are, where you work, or where you craft, this might be the grand opportunity for you to be able to conquer that craft. She is a wonderful teacher. She's very dedicated. She is very enthusiastic about helping others. And so I know that a craft along, felt along with her would be marvelous. So hopefully she'll pick out a design that she thinks we would all be capable of doing. She'll give us a list of materials. And at some point in the future, that felt along will be happening. So keep in touch. You can keep in touch here on the channel, on my Instagram. I'll let you know if such a thing occurs. You can follow her on her Instagram and go to her Ravelry. Go to Ravelry and join her group so that you'll know when these things occur. And yeah, it's just another craft so that we can exterior, right? So we can get rid of, cleanse ourselves of the toxic energies that surround us on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think felting is a wonderful craft. It's very calming, and you have to be at a peaceful state, because as you punch the felt with these needles, your image comes alive and it becomes whatever you want it to become, whatever design you have in your head. And so I think it's going to be fun. Stay around, join us, and sure, let's have some fun in future felt-alongs. Well, I think that's all that I had to share with you for today. We are most likely going to meet up again once in Edinburgh if we get the chance over there to podcast. I know that some of the podcasters are talking about meeting up and doing a joint podcast in EYF. We'll let you know if that happens, and we'll keep you in tune with what's happening on our journey. It will be a family trip. My husband is going along. Clarissa's boyfriend will be there. My son and his girlfriend is going to join us also, coming in from New Hampshire. So I know it's going to be a great time. And hopefully you will join us, and so we can take you along with us and you can live that experience through us. So thank you for coming once again, for taking the time to be with us. I hope that you've liked the content you've found here. If you have, please hit the like button below. If you want to have future updates on when I'm going to be podcasting, well, also hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so that you can receive notifications every time I publish something to this channel. And in the meantime, keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and keep crafting. Bye! Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Crochet Cakes. What I didn't say last time, I said it this time.